shall we begin?
And here we go.
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
This is Sparta!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. It's actually a regular podcast week. There was actually movie news that came out this week, which brings some regularity back to our normal lives. So most of it, obviously, is going to be a lot of release dates got updated, delayed, so it's a little bit of a release date mania, if you will. We also have some regular movie news, which is kind of interesting considering, you know, that Hollywood's pretty much shut down right now, but we got some of that to talk about, so let's just get right into it. It's a little weird to do a podcast about movie news since, you know, I haven't done one in a while considering everything that's been going on. So hopefully you guys, before I even start that, hopefully you guys are safe and sound and happy and healthy, and everything else that you can be, as well as your families. So let's get to it. Let's get to, as like I mentioned, release date mania. Movie studios had decided to band together and put out some movie news this week, like I mentioned. So we're going to start off with Marvel, and the first one is Black Widow. Now, Marvel's release dates, I should say, are interesting considering that they pretty much pushed back everything, obviously. And they pretty much, in the place of everything they pushed back, was the movie that was supposed to come out before then. So it will make sense once I say it. So Black Widow is now set to come out on November 6th. That was the original release date for The Eternals, which will now come out on February 12th of 2021. I guess Black Widow is still coming out this year. November 6th is the release date for this year. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will come out on May 7th, 2021. For the original release date was the release date for The Eternals. So again, it's wonky to say it for me for some reason, but it makes more sense when on paper. But anyway, so like I meant, yeah, Shang-Chi comes out May 7th, 2021. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will now come out on November 5th, 2021. Thor: Love and Thunder will now come out on February 18th, 2022. Captain Marvel 2, which was originally set to be released on July 29th, will come out a little earlier. It will now come out on July 8th, 2022. So there may be something in the movie that's, you know, supposed to set up for something in the future, and they want to just release it a little bit earlier. I don't know. There was also originally an Untitled Marvel movie that was set for February 18th, 2022, but that has been removed from the schedule. There was no word yet on what that was. I think some people were speculating that it was Black Panther. Others were speculating that it was something else. But from what I heard, it was mostly Black Panther. But there you go. Those are your new release dates. It's pretty interesting. On top of the Black Widow news, they've also gone through a composer change. The original composer was Alexander Desplat, who he's done a bunch of stuff, but the thing that pops in my mind right away is the Shape of Water score. He's now been replaced by Lauren Belf. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that last name wrong. But he's Lauren Belf has done the score for, I don't know why this popped in my head. He did one of the scores for the Transformers movies. I don't know why that popped in my head. Belf's done a bunch of stuff, and very good stuff too. And for whatever reason, didn't write it down, and I can't remember any of it, but good composer nonetheless. So there you go. That's your Marvel slate. And we'll stick with Marvel a little bit because there was some other Marvel news for that. Ant-Man 3 has now hired a new writer for the script in Jeff Loveless. Loveless has written for TV mostly, so he hasn't written a lot of movies. He's mostly a TV writer for shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live, the TBS anthology series Miracle Workers, and probably more importantly for all those people out there, Rick and Morty. And he's also written for the Oscars and the Emmys as well. Peyton Reed will come back to direct a third outing. Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly are set to come back as Ant-Man and the Wasp. But other than that, we don't know anything about the third movie. So there you go. There's that. All right, so let's move on. I'll continue on with release date mania. We're going to go on with the more appropriate Disney properties, or not appropriate, Disney properties, but the more straightforward Disney properties, I should say. So the first one, it's kind of a slap in the face, but Disney has decided to move the adaptation of Artemis Fowl that was directed by Kenneth Branagh directly to their streaming service of Disney Plus. And apparently it will not be the first movie to be moved to Disney Plus. There's been some other stuff, maybe New Mutants, or maybe they'll put New Mutants on Hulu because New Mutants can't catch a break. And there's my cat playing with something again. So if you hear him in the background, that's what it is. And this is technically the third move for Artemis Fowl. It was originally supposed to come out on August 8th in 2019, but then they moved it to May of this year, and of course with everything going on, that wasn't gonna happen. So it's interesting, especially considering that Artemis Fowl cost over $120 million to make. I think it was like 125 or something like that, around the ballpark there. So that's kind of interesting. The Ryan Reynolds-led action comedy Free Guy, which of course they acquired from the Fox deal, which originally supposed to come out on Independence Day weekend this year, will now come out later this year on December 11th. The animated feature film Bob's Burgers, titled Bob's Burgers the Movie, has been moved from its July 17th release to next year on April 9th. The Wes Anderson directed film The French Dispatch has been moved from July to October 16th of this year, and that will put it up against Halloween Kills, which should be a very interesting counter-program battle there. The Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt starring film Jungle Cruise has been moved an entire year. It has been moved from July 24th to July 30th of next year. Indiana Jones 5, which was supposedly set to start production around this time, has been pushed back a year as well. Originally, it was set to come out on July 9th of next year. Now it will come out on July 29th of 2022. James Mangold will be taking over directing duties from Steven Spielberg, and Harrison Ford is set to come back. But all that was announced before everything went down, so they have that going for them. And finally, this is finally the last bit, the live-action adaptation of Mulan has been given a new release date. It was originally supposed to come out on March 27th, on my birthday, so that would have been a nice present from Disney. That is now set to come out on July 24th. So Disney is very much on the whole thing of this will probably be gone by July. So there, we'll see what happens. And Mulan was arguably one of the big movies to move because of all this. The other one was, of course, A Quiet Place 2, which we have a new release date for that as well. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. Actually, just right now, because I forgot how I worked out my timeline. So Paramount Pictures. We'll talk about Paramount Pictures next. A Quiet Place Part 2. That was the first big movie. Or that was pretty much the first big movie, and then it was Mulan that got moved. That will now come out on Labor Day weekend, which is September 4th. And that will put it up against Monster Hunter and I think like two other things. I think they're on the smaller side, but that will be the big Labor Day weekend, assuming that this all will go away by September 4th as well. The next movie is Top Gun Maverick. That's also coming out from Paramount Pictures. That has been moved from its June 24th release to December 23rd. So it is now going to be a Christmas time movie, or holiday movie if you don't celebrate Christmas. And The Tomorrow War, which was set to star Chris Pratt, was set for a Christmas time, aka holiday time release, but that has been moved off the release schedule completely. So we'll have to wait and see what awaits that. And SpongeBob Sponge on the Run, if you're interested, which was supposed to come out on July 31st, will now come out on July 31st. That was originally set to come out in May as well. All right, so that's Paramount's slot. Universal Pictures slot. Not a lot of movies moved for Universal, which I find kind of interesting. Minions: The Rise of Gru was set to come out on July 3rd as well. That has been delayed a full year to July 2nd, 2021, taking over the release date that was set for Sing 2. Yes, they're making a Sing 2. That will now be moved to December 22nd, 2021 as well. So they're still releasing the same year, just releasing it closer to the holidays. The studio has also removed their adaptation of the Broadway play Wicked from its release schedule. That was supposed to come out on the new release date for Sing 2 on December 22nd, but we'll have to wait and see when they put that. So we arguably probably see that in 2022, if that's the case. All right, so let's move on to Sony Pictures. First, the Tom Hanks written and starring Greyhound. That's right, Tom Hanks wrote that movie. We talked about it when the trailer came out on the podcast. That was supposed to come out in June. That has been removed from the release schedule. There is no release date for that just yet, so that's interesting that they would take that off the release schedule, not just give it something else, considering that they've pretty much moved everything and given it a new release date. But we'll see what happens with that. I'm interested in that. It looked pretty good. So the next movie from Sony is Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway. That will now come out of January of next year, having already been moved twice this year. It was supposed to come out like in the summer, and then they moved it to, I think they moved it to August, and now they moved it to January. So there you go. The next movie is Fatherhood. That movie follows a father who has to raise his baby daughter after his wife passes away a day after he gives birth. There has been no trailer for that just yet, and I believe that one stars Kevin Hart. I don't think he's the actual main father. I think he's just in it. But there's been no trailer for it, so there's that. That will now come out earlier than expected. It will come out on October 23rd of this year. It was originally supposed to come out in January next year. I don't know why they pushed it up, but maybe Sony wants to at least make some money this year, so there is that. So the next movie is Ghostbusters Afterlife. That will come out next year as well. That will come out on March 5th. That was originally set to come out in July. Morbius was another one that was also supposed to come out in July, but now will be moved to March 19th of next year. I know we're all bummed out about that. Sorry, guys. Sorry. And the untitled Sony Marvel movie, which was most likely Venom 2, at least that's what everyone was expecting, which was set to come out on October 8th, 2021, has been removed from the release schedule completely. And finally, the always delayed Uncharted movie, which was based off the video game series, was supposed to come out on March 5th of next year. It will now come out on October 8th of next year. That movie can't catch a break either. That is the New Mutants for Sony Pictures. I'll put it that way. That is the New Mutants for Sony Pictures. All right, so some other release date news. This has been on the older side because this came out before this week. Warner Brothers has, of course, changed the Wonder Woman 1984 release date. That was supposed to come out in June. That will now come out on August 14th. They also removed 3 movies from the release schedule. They released the animated film Scoob, which is the Scooby-Doo movie, the adaptation of Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical In the Heights, and the James Wan directed thriller Malignant. That was supposed to come out on August 14th, but of course they gave that release date to Wonder Woman 1984. And Candyman, which is not a Warner Brothers picture, but this is just a little random one. Candyman has been moved from its June 12th spot to September 25th. So that's still coming out this year, just a little bit later than expected. All that said, there are some big movies that are still scheduled for their original release dates. Pixar's Soul has not been moved, at least at the time of this recording. It's still scheduled to come out on June 19th. That will probably undoubtedly be moved. The 5th Purge movie, which apparently will be titled The Forever Purge, still has its July 10th release date, and Christopher Nolan's Tenet also still has release date for its July 17th. Those movies will probably be moved. We don't know. I'm pretty sure they'll probably be moved, but right now they're sticking to their guns and they're holding on their release dates. If this thing, somehow miraculously slows down, they could probably still come out, but I don't know how. We'll have to wait and see on that one, obviously. But I know that's a lot of release date and movie news. I apologize for that, but like I mentioned, I just wanted to get it all out there, just get back to some normalcy for the movie news cycle. All right. Let's move on to the actual movie news. That was actual movie news, but some more movie news that we can talk about pretty quickly. First, Matt Reeves pretty much confirmed that the Batman will not be an origin tale, but Robert Pattinson's Batman will not be the fully formed Batman that we're all expecting. He's still pretty much early on in his career as Batman, so there is that. James Gunn hinted that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will feature Rocket's backstory. He mentioned this during a Twitter watch-along with fans for Guardians of the Galaxy, which a lot of directors are doing. Dwayne Johnson admitted that Universal is working on a sequel to Hobbs and Shaw, which is not too surprising, but considering, again, that Hollywood's pretty much shut down, they're still, developing a lot of these movies. Amazon is working with the South by Southwest Film Festival to have some movies that were going to premiere at the film festival premiere online on Amazon, on their Amazon streaming service Prime Video. That will be open for 10 days, potentially starting in late April. There has been an update on that yet, but I think that's pretty cool considering that they're doing that. Dave Bautista's action comedy My Spy, speaking of Prime Video, will now be released on Amazon's Prime Video. It was originally set to come out on April 17th, but obviously that's not happening. The movie has opened on some international markets, so there's people who have already seen it, but there's no release date for when it will come out on Amazon's Prime Video just yet. Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer are returning for the sequel to Call Me By Your Name. The news came from director himself, Luca, I always mispronounce his last name, Guadagnino, I don't know. From an Italian newspaper, nothing is known about the movie just yet, other than it is based off the sequel novel, because it was based off a novel. There's a sequel novel called Find Me, which features the same characters from the first movie and novel. The events take place 10 years after the original story, so if you have that to look forward to, if you are a fan of that. Netflix released their trailer for the Chris Hemsworth starring action film Extraction, which is produced by the Russo brothers and follows Hemsworth's Tyler, a black market mercenary hired to rescue the son of an international crime lord who has been kidnapped. I don't usually talk about the Netflix stuff, and it's not because I don't like Netflix movies. It's because usually when it comes out, it's like, oh, here's a trailer. It comes out in 2 months. So it's like, what are we doing? But, considering that there's no real movie releases out in theaters, I might as well start implementing some more Netflix and Hulu and all the other streaming services. All the other streaming services is that's not a word. Streaming service movies here on the podcast. So Extraction, and it looks pretty good. It looks, the story is something we've seen before, but maybe it still looks pretty good. There was another trailer that came out this week, which is the Train to Busan presents Peninsula. It is a sequel to the Train to Busan, which looks pretty much batshit crazy. I'm just going to admit it looks batshit crazy. The movie Peninsula is set 4 years after the events of the first movie and follows a soldier who had previously escaped the diseased wasteland that is now Seoul, Korea, or Busan, is assigned to a covert operation with two simple objectives: retrieve and survive. When his team unexpectedly stumbles upon survivors, their lives will depend on whether the best or worst of human nature prevails in the direst of circumstances. I can't read now. Seriously, this thing looks batshit crazy. It looks completely different. It is done by the same director, so it's not like, oh, we changed the director, so we got to change everything. No, it is done by the same director. It looks absolutely nuts. There is one point where it looks like we may have like a Thunderdome-esque colony of sorts. It looks like there's people and they put them up against zombies at some point, and it just looks crazy. It looks completely different from Train to Busan. So I'm looking forward to it. It looks pretty great. There's no release date just yet, but I'm pretty sure once we get a release date for that, that's gonna make a lot of money, no matter where it is. All right, moving on. Edgar Wright is set to direct the adaptation of the upcoming sci-fi novel Set My Heart to 5. That is the official title. The log line, I seriously can't read now, reads like this: set in an all too human 2054, so it is set in the future, follows Jared, an android that works as a dentist, as he undergoes an emotional awakening that is sparked by the introduction to 80s and 90s movies. He then embarks on a quest to convince humans that he and his kind should be permitted to feel. It's a quest that leads to unforgettable adventures across the west coast of America, determined to meet a programmer that created him to write a film script that will change the world. So the writer of the movie, or the writer of the novel, will also write the movie pretty much probably alongside Edgar Wright, who is currently in post-production on his next film, Last Night in Soho, which was scheduled to come out later this year, or is scheduled to come out later this year, unless, again, something happens and they got to push that back too. Wright is also currently reportedly working on Baby Driver 2 and is attached to direct an adaptation of the young adult novel Grasshopper Jungle. So he's a very busy man. This sounds interesting. It's a robot dentist who has nostalgia over 80s and 90s movies. So in the hands of Edgar Wright, I think this will work very, very well. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, on that, because, again, Hollywood's pretty much not going anywhere. Ridley Scott will officially direct Lady Gaga in the true crime drama Gucci. The movie is about the murder of the fashion trailblazer himself, which is based off a novel by Sarah Gay Forden titled A Sensational Story of Murder, Madness, and Glamour and Greed. Scott has been circling the project since 2009, so this has been in the works for quite a while. Angelina Jolie and Leonardo DiCaprio were circling the lead roles at that point. But then in 2012, Scott stepped aside to let his daughter, Jordan Scott, which I didn't even know she was a director, but there you go. To direct the movie, but now Ridley Scott is back on board. As for Lady Gaga, she will play the lead role of Patricia Rangini, the ex-wife of Gucci, who was convicted of orchestrating. I'm sorry, my cat's playing behind me and it's really starting to bother me. The convicted of orchestrating the hit on her ex-husband after finding out he had an affair. MGM, who secured the rights for the movie, is very high in the project, so much so that they have scheduled the movie for a November 24th, 2021 release date, which is really a bit problematic considering that Ridley Scott had to shut down production on film of his movie The Last Duel, which is set to come out in December, but considering everything going on, who knows if it will even make that December release date. So again, if something miraculous happens and this thing ends, around June or July, maybe September, maybe he can still make that release date. Ridley Scott's is known for a quick turnover on things, and The Last Duel was literally in the middle of production. They were halfway through before they had to shut down. So obviously we'll have to wait and see on that. But I don't know. I mean, obviously he's been waiting to do this movie since 2009, so I'm pretty sure he can wait a little bit longer for that. Universal Pictures is set to remake the classic 1955 film, which is based off a novel of the same name, The Night of the Hunter. And they have hired Matt Orden, who was the writer on Operation Finale, which was the movie that starred Oscar Isaac and Ben Kingsley. Oscar Isaac was like a Nazi hunter, and Ben Kingsley was a Nazi that he was hunting. That came out last year. Yeah, it came out last year. Obviously, it came out last year. He's also writing the new live-action family film for Disney Plus called Knights. So Matt Orden will write the script for the remake. The story, which will be updated for modern audiences, will be produced by former Disney head Amy Pascal. The original, by the way, in case you never seen it, which I highly recommend you do, it's a black and white movie, so that sets you off. Then, well, too bad for you. But I highly recommend it to watch it because I watched it for the first time in a class, and I just immediately instantly liked it. I know some of my other classmates didn't like it, but I really liked it. Anyway, the movie starred Robert Meacham as Reverend Harry Powell, a serial killer whose former cellmate made off with $10,000. Of course, this movie was made back in '50s, so that sounds like a lot, although that's still a lot of money today. $10,000 following a bank robbery. When his partner is executed and Powell gets out of jail, he sets out to find the man's widow so he can steal the money from her and her children, who know where the money is hidden, and then it leads to a deadly cat and mouse game. It's very good. It's one of those movies that's a little, I mean, if you put your mindset back then, it is very haunting. It's about a man who's very charming. He's very, he's very suave, and he's, basically threatening these little kids. And there's this great scene between the kids, and I think it's their grandmother. I can't remember who the old woman is, but it's the kids, and it's the grandmother, and then there's this song that plays, and that was the thing that instantly it's the scene that just instantly made me fall for this movie. And I think everyone, if you've seen it, you probably know what it is. I'll play a little clip of it right here.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Shame on you, Ruby. Running around the house after that mad dog of a man. Miss Flames. Ruby, go get the children out of bed and bring them down here.
All right, next up is the Hellraiser reimagining has found its director in David Buckner. He's directed the Netflix film The Ritual, and it has some segments that he did for the horror anthology VHS. So if you're familiar with that, while the reimagining details are being kept secret, Spyglass Media, the studio behind the movie, has said the reboot will be loyal yet evolved to the original source material created by Clive Barker, and of course, the first original movie. Spyglass Media, by the way, is also behind the reboot of Scream. So if you want to get your pitchforks ready, if you don't agree with what they have doing, just telling you right now. The Hellraiser remake, they kind of already redid it a few years ago. It supposedly wasn't very good. I haven't watched it. And the first Hellraiser movie, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan. I can see why fans like it. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. I get how, what it was trying to do and what it was trying to say and stuff like that, but just overall, I just wasn't that big of a fan of it. But moving on to another horror-related project, Gary Dauberman, the director of Annabelle Comes Home, which was his feature film directorial debut, after being a writer for the Annabelle movies, has lined up his next directorial effort in the remake of Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Dauberman has already written the script for the movie, and he has now signed a new deal that will allow him to direct the movie as well. The book, in case you need a reminder, centers on an author who returns to his hometown to write about an abandoned mansion there, only to discover that it has a mysterious new owner from Europe. While in the town, the writer realizes that the townspeople are now being turned into vampires, and he bands together with a ragtag group to battle the vampires with. The novel has previously been adapted in 1979 in a miniseries directed by the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and also got a sequel series in 1987, and there was also a TV movie made in 2004, if you want to go check that out, that was made by TNT, that starred Rob Lowe. I am familiar with Salem's Lot. I never actually read it, but I know that it involved vampires, and I knew that there was a very big fan following behind it, as a lot of Stephen King's stories are, but there you go. Another Salem's Lot movie is in the works. And Gary Dauberman, I liked what he did with Annabelle Comes Home. I don't think it was the best one, but I like Gary Dauberman's work. He also did some work on the It movie, so he is very familiar with Stephen King already. So I'm sure this will be another walk in the park for him. And finally, the last bit of movie news, Disney is remaking their animated classic Robin Hood for their Disney Plus streaming service, and they have found a director in Carlos Lopez Estrada. Estrada is best known for directing the 2018 crime drama Blind Spotting, which got some praise from the film festival circuit, and will direct off the script by Carrie Gardlin, who wrote the Lady and the Tramp live-action remake for the streaming service as well. Of course, the animated movie was a comedic and musical take that featured Robin Hood as a fox, or as some people have started calling him, the sexy fox, and the uncomfortably sexy Robin Hood, which, if that's your thing, man, then have at it. And the sheriff of Nottingham was a wolf, and all the creatures in the movie were basically anthropomorphic, and the new take will be a musical once again, and will feature the characters as those anthropomorphic creatures as well. Of course, this time it will be a live action CGI hybrid, so similar probably to what they were doing with the Lady and the Tramp remake that they did, and of course Lion King and the Jungle Book. I don't know, I can remember the other one. The news just broke this week, but the deal was apparently made before Hollywood locked down, so the project is in early development. It has been a very long time since I've seen the animated Robin Hood movie, so I really have no opinion on it. I have not seen the Lady and the Tramp remake that they did on Disney Plus either, mainly because I wasn't really the biggest Lady and the Tramp fan, so I really had no connection to it and really kind of had no reason to watch it. I've heard mixed things about it, so I don't know if maybe this is a good thing or a bad thing, but they're remaking Robin Hood. They're doing it for Disney Plus, so you don't have to necessarily waste your money if you don't support it. But if you're already supporting Disney Plus in that way, then I guess you can go watch it. But yeah, there you go. And that's it. That's all the movie news that has come out this week. Again, a little bit of regularity to the podcast and to the movie news cycle. Hopefully it continues, although again, anything that gets announced is going to have to wait since Hollywood is on lockdown. We're all pretty much kind of on lockdown at this point a little bit. I mean, we can still leave our houses, but we don't need to leave our houses. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I appreciate it. Hopefully it brings some normalcy back to the movie news and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Standing too close to the mic. But thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I really much appreciate it. Everything you need is down below in the description/show notes area. Links to anywhere you want to listen to: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, the WordPress account, which I don't have too much going on the WordPress account. I do have my decade in review, but I'm doing something similar to that here on the podcast. I'm actually about to record my April monthly rewind there. Yeah, I got nothing else for you. I mean, I've seen some of the movies that has come out. I saw Bloodshot the other day. It's fine. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. It's fine. It's not all that great, but it was fine for what, you know. We're not going anywhere. Any new movie is going to be, you know, it's going to be fine. But there's that. All right. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Very much appreciate it. Be sure to hit that follow button wherever you want to follow on social medias. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube, I highly appreciate it. If you want to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, I would very much appreciate that as well. If you are subscribing on Apple Podcasts, why not leave me a review while you're at it as well? It really helps me out. And of everything going on right now, I really would appreciate a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. But thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Hopefully you guys are safe, happy, and healthy. We will get through this. Just, you know, be smart, be safe. If you have to go outside, be smart and be safe. 6 feet apart, wash your hands. Yeah, and that's it. Just, you know, help each other out whenever we can. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much. As always, you have this now has more power to it. Go watch some movies because that's pretty much all we can do now online. There's a bunch of movies. If you miss something, here's your chance to go watch it. All right. Thanks, guys. See you guys next time.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!